If you are truly growing, that means that you're constantly in a state of being uncomfortable. And therefore, you're not going to feel comfortable. And if that's the case, you may experience a little bit of imposter syndrome. However, if you have attained full and complete mastery of everything in your domain, and you're comfortable just staying there, I think that's fine. However, everything around you is still going to change because that's just the nature of life. Being able to grow, stay, and accept a level of discomfort as a leader, I think is going to help you figure out how to navigate those next steps. Welcome to the Nice Business Podcast. I'm your host, Richard Train, business, leadership, and culture consultant, and Vistage CEO, peer advisory group chair. And I'm joined by my friend, JLoev Howard, veteran technical consultant. Together, we have more than 60 combined years of business and organizational experience. The purpose of this podcast is to have short but meaningful discussions about the people and culture side of business and how owners and executives can be both kind and successful. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Nice Business Podcast. I'm your host, Richard Train, and with me is my co-host, JLoev Howard. And we are very lucky today to be talking with both of our old friend, Jennie Loev. And Jennie is an executive and career coach for many years. And I'm not going to say for how many, but all of us kind of go back to college days together. Yep. And one of the topics that we really wanted to talk about that Jennie has some particular expertise in is really understanding and overcoming imposter syndrome, which I think is way more significant and prevalent than many people think. Now, Jennie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you so much. And I'm so happy to see you both after many, many years. It's been a special surprise for me, for sure. So to tell you a little bit about me, I'm the founder of JLoev Consulting, where I work with professionals and leaders who are navigating growth, transition, or increased responsibility. And my work focuses on helping people gain clarity, build confidence, and move forward with intention in their careers.
That's great. Let's talk a little bit about imposter syndrome. I mean, I know that imposter syndrome, a lot of people who are executives feel it. When they're really being honest, I mean, I've had frank conversations with several who say that. I know that there are others who feel it that leads to depression and inactivity and inability to do their work, but that is not also can be a driving force for others in high-level positions. Wouldn't that be true?
Absolutely. Yes, and I think some people use it as motivation.
Yeah. And I was going to say too, I mean, even just thinking of the term imposter syndrome, right? Mm-hmm. Most of us have experienced feeling like an imposter at times. What makes it a syndrome? Why did we put that moniker on there? And what does it have to do with how we actually show up when we are feeling like an imposter? I mean, like we were talking before we turned the recording on, is that most of us go through this, right? I mean, all of us feel it, and it's not a thing to avoid necessarily. It's just, what are the outcroppings, I guess, of feeling like an imposter, and then how do we overcome the syndrome side of things and go on and either use that as a motivating factor or continue doing, what turns out we're actually an expert in.
Sure. It's interesting because imposter syndrome is a syndrome because it is something that like people can experience pervasively, and it can cause them to have so much fear that they don't do things. They make choices against things. And they also spend a lot of emotional energy contemplating, is this the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Like, what are people looking at? So I think that's where it becomes something that's more than just saying, sometimes I feel like an imposter, because it is something that can be debilitating for some. And the thing that's really been surprising to me is realizing how many people don't recognize that most everybody else in the room with them feels the same. And
right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's where I think recognizing like it's okay and not fighting it or being afraid of it is kind of step number one.
That's good.
One of my recent conversations with somebody had to do with how they were feeling like they were an imposter, that they were some kind of fraud. But the reality was, and this is something that I told them, that because people go into a new situation, new workplace, new role, and they're feeling a little bit overwhelmed, and it can take the form of imposter syndrome, but if utilized properly, it can be a driving force to get you to really think critically, perform better, really try to put forward your best work possible. So maybe it's just me, but I feel that it can be really a driver of good, solid work on behalf of the person that's feeling it, provided they don't let it overwhelm them. What would y'all say to that?
I look at it as if somebody is harnessing it so that they make sure that they are like confidently coming to the table with knowledge and information, I think it's great. But if it's something that they're motivated to do that because they're afraid, then that doesn't seem healthy to me.
Right, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think you're right, Richard. I think there's definitely an aspect of what's the basis, right? Why am I feeling like an imposter, and why do I feel like maybe I should not be doing what I'm doing, or, the debilitating side of that? And maybe take it as a moment to, and maybe more than a moment, to just reflect on, well, how did you end up at this table? How are you in this room? How did you get here, and why were you invited? Your perspective is unique. You cannot be an imposter of yourself. And that's I can't remember who the famous quote is, be yourself, everyone else is taken, right? And that's kind of the focus, really, of dealing with feeling like an imposter and being at a point where it is debilitating, where you won't move forward because you are afraid of, am I going to mess something up? Or are they going to figure out that I'm a fraud? Or are they going to realize that I don't know what I'm talking about? Do I know what I'm talking about? But if you use that, like you said, as a motivating force to either learn more, right? Or to be able to just recognize that, I do have experience. I do have expertise. I do have genius in this area that is valid to this. Does that mean I have to be the hero of the situation? No, but it does mean that I'm here for a reason, and let me fulfill that purpose for the reason I'm even at the table.
That's a great point, Jim Bob. Jenny, what would you say would be probably step number one if somebody is experiencing this? I mean, like, what kinds of things have you told to clients of yours in the past as far as helping them to deal with this?
So step number one is truly normalizing it, recognizing that the CEO in the room, like the CEO that might be telling me they're experiencing it, that they understand that they're not alone, that other C-suite executives are feeling the same thing. But at the same time, having that entry level person who's feeling that for sure, understand that even the CEO feels this way, and just recognizing that it's okay because it means we're stretching, we're growing. So to me, that's step one, is acknowledging that you're venturing outside of your comfort zone, and that's exciting but scary, and that you're reacting to it, and it's very natural. So rather than trying to like pretend it's not there or beat yourself up because you're not feeling as confident as you wish, it comes down to really saying, like, this is okay. And it also gives you a chance to reflect on, why is this coming up? What story am I telling myself about how I'm not good enough or smart enough or whatever, so that you can separate it out from what is reality.
Right. Yeah, you use the word growth, which I find interesting because the subject of how to grow as a leader means that if you are truly growing, that means that you're constantly in a state of being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And therefore, you're not going to feel comfortable. And if that's the case, you may experience a little bit of imposter syndrome. However, if you have attained full and complete mastery of everything in your domain, and you're comfortable just staying there, I think that's fine. However, everything around you is still going to change because that's just the nature of life. So being able to grow and stay and accept a level of discomfort as a leader, I think is going to help you figure out how to navigate those next steps, even if it gives you a degree of imposter syndrome. Jennie, what would you say is they've hit step number 1? They've accepted it. What do you think is the next step?
So next, I think it's about recognizing what you need to grow confidence. So is it, first you figure out the story you're telling yourself, and oftentimes it's basically just confidence related of, I don't feel like I know what I'm doing. And so it's shifting from, I have to prove myself, to, I want to learn. How do I learn and grow and develop confidence through knowledge and through experimenting and refining?
No, that's good. And I've heard it said too that if you can suck at something until you don't, you can accomplish anything. And that's really the win or learn attitude of how you approach anything. And being able to say, maybe I do suck at this right now, but being honest about that, both with yourself and with your teammates, of like, hey, this is a place where this is a great opportunity for growth for me, because it's not something I've experienced before. I feel like there are experiences that I can bring to this that are going to help me, that I can apply to it. But have I been in this exact situation? No. And the truth is, like, back to your first point, is that the other people in the room may not have been through this experience either. And they may be coming at it like, okay, how do we solve this? Right. And to be honest, if you're working through something that you're trying to come up with a solution for something, it's because nobody in the room has solved this by themselves completely. And that's why we have a team together, and your voice is important.
Yeah, I mean, and going back to your point, Richard, you can be a subject matter expert on something, but when it comes to the world that involves humans, there are always going to be challenges and opportunities. So even if you know how to create X, Y, or Z on an assembly line, at the same time, the growth can come from the people aspect, or even new technologies and strategy and whatnot. So I don't know that I feel like anybody ever gets to a place where they should be done growing and learning and really putting themselves out there in new ways. Because to me, people who are successful are wanting to continue to improve themselves, their organizations, and their team.
And honestly, just putting it together, what both of you have said, it's like if you're growth minded, you're going to experience feeling like an imposter. Now, if it becomes a syndrome and keeps you from growing, then it's, it's kind of defeating the purpose. But that's the truth of it. You're going to continue every time you stretch. You're going to be in a situation where you're going to be doing something for the first time with somebody for the first time, applying into this specific situation for the first time. And so there are no imposters here, right? It's everyone there is working together to do this for the first time. And just recognizing that is like, if you don't do that, then you're just stagnant, right? There is no growth involved. Right. So getting to the point where there's growth, right? Because you're realizing that I need to set aside, you feeling like an imposter, this is an opportunity to grow. But also every time I move to grow, I may end up back in the same feeling. And I kind of like maybe use it as a marker that, well, if I feel this way, maybe I'm growing. What do you think?
Love that.
I love that, Jim Bob. That's true. You've probably heard the old saying that if you are the smartest person in the room, you're probably in the wrong room. And the converse of that is that if you know that everybody else in the room is smarter than you, then that's probably a source of imposter syndrome. But don't you think that's also an opportunity for you to learn from a lot smarter people?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, if you are leading a company and you come in and you're dealing with teams of really incredibly smart people, but you don't have their skill set, I can see how somebody could feel a little bit overwhelmed by that. So what would you tell somebody who is in that case when they are taking over a new leadership role and they realize that they are leading teams of really intelligent people or subject matter experts that they don't have. And how would you tell them to approach that?
I would look at it from the perspective of how will they identify and immerse themselves within their new role in a way that's going to be the most impactful for them, their learning, as well as for the organization itself. And so the first step is really to have a lot of one-on-one meetings with these wonderful, experienced, amazing team members and learn about what, get their perspective not only on what they do, but also from an organizational perspective, what's going well and what could be improved, so that they basically develop those relationships and get the foundation started on that, so that it becomes a collaboration. Because an amazing leader is somebody who helps their team be successful, and an amazing team helps their leader be successful. And so having that exchange and that candor, because I do think the more transparent leaders can be and organizations can be, the more that, like, even just taking it to a different place of like the new CEO, looking at it and him being her being transparent about, I want to learn from you, and here's what I'm thinking, and like basically creating partners so that they can bounce things off. I feel like that is a way to come into a new organization, establish yourself, not act like you already know everything, which I think is the tendency. The tendency is to feel like you were hired. You have to show them why you were hired. But at the same time, the leaders that are the most successful with these types of transitions approach it with curiosity. They don't expect themselves to know everything. They acknowledge it to their teams, and they say, I'm not going to say I know everything. I have experience, but I don't have experience here. And I want to learn about here before I make any decisions or whatnot. And also getting folks in their corner as resources and partners can have a huge impact on the organization as a whole and as it trickles down. Because I am a firm believer that everything trickles down from the top, and bottom-up attempts to adapt culture and whatnot are not effective if the leadership isn't bought in. So to me, it seems like humility, ultimately humility,
fantastic.
curiosity.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, there's a guy my brother used to work with who said, and I love this line, that there are leaders who create work and leaders who alleviate work. And the really great ones alleviate work. And figuring out how to do that, whether you're feeling overwhelmed or not, if you can figure out how to do that for your teams, doesn't matter how much smarter than you they are, they will love you for that. So that could be a great way of going about it. But I love what you're talking about as far as just being curious.
Yeah, I have a former client that I keep in touch with, and he entered a new organization, and the folks have technical capabilities and knowledge that are way above his head. And as the leader of them, he looks at it as how much he appreciates surrounding himself by smart people. So some of it has to do with even reframing, being like, wow, when I worked at Dell, I was so impressed with how intelligent everyone was around me. And then I would look for like, what are the specific things from each person that I can learn? And I would identify some of their areas of expertise and say, okay, I'd love to learn this from you. And by coming in though, and not saying like, I think it was a pivotal moment in my coaching relationship with the person I just mentioned, when I was like, that's not who, you're never going to be technical in that way. Like that's right. Never going to be him. So do you really need to like act like in an interview like you are? We were discussing it because he felt compelled. And I was like, just be transparent about where you're coming from. And that way nobody gets surprised. You don't end up in a job that you hate. And he's a developer of people and he appreciates their expertise. So I would encourage any leader who comes into an organization surrounded by smart people to be grateful and understand how it all fits together in ways that are, the best thing for each individual, which ultimately leads to being the best thing for the organization.
Yeah, Jim Bob, I'm going to channel my inner Jim Bob here for a minute. because we've had conversations with folks, and I know that Jim Bob, you've said before that people hire you for the genius that you provide. I mean, that's why they hired you. And if you are a leader coming into an organization and you're feeling imposter syndrome, do the thing that you are hired to do, because that's your expertise.
Yeah.
So you can let the other people, I'm probably botching it all up here, Jim Bob, but so correct me if I'm wrong. But basically, you got hired as that leader, or maybe you started that company as a leader to do a certain thing. And that's the genius that you should be exercising, whereas you're getting the other people to do what they are smartest at.
Yeah.
Is that about the size of it?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I think the key point there is that we hire people, and this is everybody. If you're brought in as a new leader, if you're brought in as an individual contributor, wherever you are brought in for the genius that you bring to that role. And so the focus then should be to do what only you can do, right? You're there as this unique voice, unique experience, unique expertise, unique training, unique problem solving, unique everything. There's no one like you that's there. And so do the things that only you can do, and then automate or delegate the rest, right? And so if you're looking at your team, you want to delegate as much as you can to the smart people that know the things that you don't know, or have the experiences that you don't have, or have the technical expertise, the medical expertise, wherever your situation is. If you're brought in to lead an organization, it's because you do have genius and expertise in that area. Now, have you done this type of project before, or this type of team before? Maybe not. And so there is that level of growth where you take all of the things that you know and you assimilate those and apply them to this new situation, but that's where your genius comes in. And so that's, I think you did a pretty good job of describing, channeling your inner Jim Bob on that. So good job.
I'm glad to hear that. So Jennie, I mean, we're talking about understanding and overcoming imposter syndrome. When will we know that we have overcome it?
Yeah.
That's a great question. When I think about that, I think it's about when it comes up, not letting it impact any forward movement, and quickly saying, okay, so I'm feeling uncomfortable, having it reframed. All right, I'm outside of my comfort zone. And ideally, then seeing that as like, this is exciting. It's a little scary, but it's also exciting. And that way folks can really get, who are experiencing it, know, like, I have the self-doubt crept up. But I'm now accepting praise. I'm now, I'm letting that seep in and not be all about the things that I can do better. So recognizing strengths, and then ultimately feeling like, I can do this. Yeah, I'm uncomfortable. I can do it.
Yeah. That's great. I think that there's probably no such thing as done. I mean, hopefully, with any luck, you're always going to be challenged. You'll always find new things to tackle and try to understand. But having this process that, you talked about, and really understanding how to apply that process whenever something new comes up, can give people the tools that they need. Wouldn't you think?
I do think so. And I think there's additional pieces in terms of tools that I would recommend, which is really taking the time to review praise and to acknowledge it, hold it, and then tracking and celebrating all wins, like on a weekly basis, so that you have that balancing of versus, on the one hand, you're going to feel like the stress, the anxiety, the fear, but then on the other hand, like, I'm thinking of it like balance items, you have the positive, and those can outweigh the negative or challenge them in a way where it's okay. It's one thing to be, we've got two sides of the spectrum. One is where you're totally overconfident, so you think you know everything and everybody else knows less. And then you've got the folks who were so debilitated by not wanting to make a mistake that they hold themselves back in so many ways. And so I think what you want to be is somebody who's in the middle, who can maybe that's trending towards, that's in a confident place, holding their own, appreciating their strengths, recognizing their value. And then when things pop up, being like, okay, this is just part of the deal. And it doesn't need to sideline or sidetrack anyone. But I do think that I think it is most difficult for many senior leaders to recognize that everybody else is feeling it. At the same time, I'm seeing a trend in more senior leaders bringing it up to me, men in particular. And that is encouraging because it shows like it's getting out there, people are acknowledging it. It's not a clinical diagnosis, but it is widely experienced.
Yeah.
And among those high achievers, leaders, people navigating growth, change, and all of that. So to me, it's about really just standing, like grounding yourself in, I am amazing. I am awesome. And whatever this is, I'll deal with it. I'll learn, I'll grow, but I am awesome. And I appreciate that.
Yeah. Can you give some practical examples to what we were talking about as far as, kind of capturing and holding the praise and how you might go about celebrating that, doing a weekly celebration? What would that look like for, a specific leader or a specific organization?
Sure. I mean, what it could look like for a specific leader is that every day at the end of the day, they reflect on, here's what went well. And then at the end of each week, review it and think, okay, and take a moment to be intentional about considering what that says about themselves, the values that those items speak of their values, and making that just a regular habit is one thing that would be great. And I would say within organizations too, the more you can celebrate wins and recognize the things that have gone well, versus like, it's kind of like in performance reviews, what typically happens is they're like, yeah, you did good in this, this, and this, but now let's talk about this thing you need to do better on. So shifting that. So it's like, okay, I recognize that there were some things that didn't go great this week. However, look at all the things that went wonderful. And in terms of those things that didn't go great, what's my plan to ensure it doesn't happen again? But not be about, I have to fix this about myself. I have to work on it. More just like you create a plan and then you say, but look how awesome I am. Look at the amazing things that happen, whether it's revenue related or people related or personally feeling like on top of your stuff. Because that's part of it too. What can happen with imposter syndrome is because people feel like not enough, they can then overwork to compensate. So they just crank and they don't have a life and they burn themselves out because they're so worried about looking like they don't know what they're doing, which isn't healthy.
No. It's interesting that you're saying that because I've often found people that I have worked with who, look, I'm not a psychologist. I have not been able to diagnose them, but those who tend to have imposter syndrome. They may be cranking out a ton of really great work, but I've also seen them micromanage the heck out of everybody under them because they were so afraid of looking like a fraud. So they work everybody under them to death. And that's something that I think I love what you're talking about as far as celebrating the wins, because that helps to keep people, it helps to divert a downward spiral and at least flattens it out. If not, helps to raise it up and just calm everything down.
Well, I think it goes back to the tendency too. You've heard people's like, if you go to a restaurant and you like it, you're probably going to tell a couple of people. If you go to a restaurant and you don't like it, you have bad service, you're going to tell 7 people, right? We are much, much more in tune to amplifying the negatives and minimizing the positives, right? So, well, yeah, I did these couple of things good, but here are all the things that I did bad. And I think, Jennie, you let's flip that script and say, well, here are the things that didn't go well, but, right? And where we end that is, here are all the things that were wins. And the things that didn't go well, I've recognized them. I see where they are. I'm going to come up with a plan for how I'm going to manage those.
Not doing that again.
Yeah, not doing that again. But I think it's a tendency, especially in Western culture too, to take a look at at things that are negative and say, here are the places where you need to work. I'm like, okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
that's great. But did you notice the things that I did well? Those things, some of those things were easy for me to do. They actually gave me energy to accomplish. Maybe that's my area of genius. I'm not saying that I don't need to work on the things that I didn't do well, but maybe I'm not the right person to do those things either. Maybe I should be spending more time doing this other thing. And that's not always going to be the case, but being able to just recognize, here are the wins. Here are the wins. Here's the positive things that we did. Let's amplify those within our organization with, even just an individual person. When you're having a one-on-one with somebody, it's like, hey, here are all the wins that I saw you do. And I know that you feel bad about this thing, but you're not losing your job over that. Here are all the things that you've done well. And yes, that thing that you brought up that's negative, that is an opportunity for growth for you. But I see overall positives, that you're here, and I'm glad you're here. I think we need to hear that more. I think we need to say it more.
Right.
Absolutely. I think that's a huge deficit in terms of leadership. It's amazing how many people don't want to praise somebody also for what they did well, because they're like, that's their job. And
right.
Yeah.
If they did it well, why not help them feel good about it so that then they build on that in the future?
Well, I paid them.
Exactly. I mean, so many people will say that. Like, why should I have to motivate them? I pay them. Like, it's up to them to figure it out. Which, when you feel, I firmly believe, when you feel like you are valued, trusted, and safe,
yes,
you are free to just soar.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that's where I was talking about transparency earlier. And that's where, too, bringing it back to even to imposter syndrome, too. Let's say somebody's experiencing it and somebody else who believes in them, trusts in them, values them, gives them some feedback. That's also another way to help with that and help support them. But I just believe that organizations are evolving. Some aren't. But ultimately, it's kind of amazing how most people don't get that. Like, they think of it as like, I'm leading a team, they have a job to do, do your job.
Yeah.
I won't say most people, but a lot of leaders in organizations and a lot of leaders within organizations have that approach.
It's interesting that you're saying that, because I remember early in my career, I had a supervisor who gave me a 6-month review. And I thought that I had accomplished I went into it having already done my own recording of everything that I did, being prepared, knowing the things that went wrong and what I did to overcome them and bring them to resolution and everything. I went in there feeling like I was really on top of my game. And what this person did was give me just an average mark. And I said, why? And the response was, well, you did do everything right. And by all measures, you really just knocked it out of the park. I'm like, well, then why do I have an average grade? And the response was, well, because there's always room for improvement, isn't there?
Yeah.
So I thought that was just a terrible way of motivating me. To me, I was thinking, well, why would I ever do anything more than the average then?
Yeah.
If the best that I can get is just an average rating. So after going back to this, I realized, and I talked to some other people, I had other mentors who were above this person who said, the problem is that if managers at that level give all highest marks to their people, then it looks bad for them. That they're just like giving everybody a pass and they're not managing. And so in order to compensate for that, this manager, I really firmly believe, had imposter syndrome and just wanted to do whatever they thought was what they were being told to do, as opposed to give accurate reviews of the people who were doing the great work.
Yeah.
And that's something I think that a lot of managers could really learn from, is be honest with the work that your people are doing. If you feel that you're going to be looked at askance for sideways for just giving all great remarks. I would rather go to bat to defend my people and say why they're so great than worry about what that's going to look like for me.
Yeah, I used to, back when I managed people, I would get headaches before I gave performance reviews because my goal was for them to walk out like feeling good about themselves, feeling like they want to get back to work, and feeling like they have support around their growth. And it was really fun to see how folks would practically bounce out of the room, and like even if I gave them some tough feedback. So it's not like I wasn't easy, but they also knew I supported them, and at times I wanted folks to stretch and try something that was uncomfortable, and I would say if it doesn't work, like it's okay. Like I just want you to try, and I'm here to support you. And the example I'm thinking of is somebody who just isn't a strategic thinker, and I tried to develop that, which is was not going to happen, but we tried. It's fine. And then it's like, okay, this is where she is, and that's okay too. And so really, I do think it comes down to thinking about how do you give feedback, whether you're giving regular feedback as people are doing things, whether it's only when there's a problem, because again, going back to imposter syndrome, the more you can get evidence, support, positivity, the more you're freed up to do your job. Because that's the other thing too, is like all of these things, imposter syndrome, feeling like, like, why should I do more than good enough? And all of that come down to like, what else is on your mind versus just getting to work and being excited to get to work, even though some things aren't fun, and moving forward from there. And I just think that's just a really important consideration for leaders, not just dealing with their own imposter syndrome, but acknowledging that their team members have it too. And a word of praise can go so far. And that's why it's just so surprising how many leaders withhold that for no real good reason. Like you were saying, like this person had their other stuff. I will also take it to the organization, because I have worked with companies on their performance reviews. The fact that there's nobody reviewing what it says and considering what that means in terms of ratings, that is its own problem. But like that's concerning, although I'm sure not uncommon. And I think we spend so much of our time at work, and the more we can feel supported externally and internally, again, thinking about imposter syndrome, the more we're able to thrive, to soar, to be happy. And you're a bad boss, a situation where you feel like you've been thrown into something new and you're not getting support around it, you're either going to figure it out or fail, and nobody seems to be invested in helping you succeed. Like those things are so hard, but taking that time to be intentional as a leader makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Great points. Jennie, I got to tell you that we could probably talk about this for hours. I think that this is an important conversation, but I'm glad that you were able to spend some time with us to talk about this now. And I'm hoping that leaders who listen to this really take something away from that, is how to, first of all, understand when they're feeling this or when their people are feeling this and what to do about it. So thank you for being with us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me to join you both. I'm so excited to be back in touch, and I look forward to continuing to stay in touch.
Well, that sounds great. Thank you, Jennie. I appreciate it.
How can folks get in touch with you, Jennie?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
They can go to my website, JLoev, JLoev, consulting.com, or they can find me on LinkedIn, Jennie Loev.
Excellent. We will put that in the show notes for this episode as well. So thanks, Jennie. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Nice Business Podcast. We hope you got some valuable information and inspiration. We're always looking for great stories that will help your business be more kind and successful. And if you know of one we should hear or someone that would be a great interview, please let us know. To contact me, click the link here to go to my website or use this QR code. I wish you a nice business.